So let's talk about Forgery. Is that a witty enough title? No, probably not. What's going on, guys? Let's talk about the whole forging of weapons that came along with Curse of Osiris. Believe it or not, I finally completed them all. I know you guys out there probably had them done already, but man, I had a busy December. So I finally finished them, and let's break this off into two sections for this video. The first part will be the entire player experience of actually forging all these weapons with Brother Vance through the Lost Prophecies, and the second half I'll just give you my overall opinions on all the weapons that you actually grind for, because I gotta admit, it was a bit of a grind, and I think as a Destiny player base, we're, you know, we either hate grind or we love grind. Too much grind, we hate it. Too little grind, we also hate it. Now, for me personally, I like grind. I like a lot of grinding. Let me know in the comments section how you feel about that. I was one of those folks, much to people's chagrin, in Destiny 1, just to upgrade one weapon. You had to spend hours looking for helium filaments, spirit blooms, spin metal, all sorts of stuff. And yeah, it was hours of farming. So I did like the fact that, for me at least, it took some time to forge all of these weapons. So let's just backtrack a little bit. So we have 10 of these verses, right? And then there was another verse, which gave you the Saint 14 shotgun, which gave a little bit of a quest to go get that thing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But overall, you have these Lost Prophecies, right? And we had to collect things. We had our concentrated radiolarian. Is it radiolarian? I don't know. I have a terrible accent. Radiolarian, I'm going to call it, culture. We had the advanced paradox amplifiers. And then lastly, you had the fossilized Ermion blossom. I think that's how you pronounce it. You guys know I butcher everything. So in all of these verses, to actually forge these things, you got to go collect things. And you got to grind and you got to farm for these things, which for me, from a player experience, I enjoy. There were certain aspects I didn't like, some aspects I did like. So in essence, we're crafting these weapons, right? And I like that. I think there's more they can do down the road with this type of player experience, where we have to go do things out and about in all of the activities within Destiny 2 to get new loot. So the first player experience I want to talk about is the whole farming for the radiolarian cultures. So they come in green and they come in blue, and you pretty much need blues if you want to forge a weapon. Sometimes you need 2, sometimes you need 3. And to get those, okay, sometimes you can get lucky and actually find a blue, which is a concentrated radiolarian culture. But for the most part, you're just going to get yourself a lot of greens. And if you get 10 greens, turn them into Brother Vance, and you can trade them in for one of the concentrated radiolarian cultures. Now, for me, this was the best part of the player experience. You're probably saying, what are you, crazy? Those things are annoying to get. Not really, because I like the fact that to get radiolarian cultures, I can go and do pretty much any activity out and about while patrolling. For me, patrolling is still one of the most fun things in the game. Even though there's no real reason to do them, to me they're fun. But you can get them from anywhere. You can get them from public events, from high-value targets. You can get them from opening up chests. So for me, to farm those things, I had a good old time. For the most part, I just went to the European Dead Zone. I went and just got a map from Cade 6 showing the locations of nearby chests, and I just had a good old time running around the European Dead Zone until I got enough to run back to Brother Vance, trade them in, and get myself a concentrated radiolarian culture, and then start forging my weapon. Next up is the paradox amplifiers, and from a player experience, I'm going to say this one was a little bit too grindy, except for when Mayhem Clash hit. Thank God. Because you can get these from Crucible matches, heroic adventures, and of course strikes. Now, we're kind of limited in how many strikes we have, and I don't know if you're on PlayStation, but man, that Taken Blight strike comes up like every other strike, and it gets so annoying. But to farm for these things, it took some time, and it's the same deal. You get 10 green paradox amplifiers, trade them in, you get yourself 1 blue, and occasionally, if you get really lucky, at the end of a strike or the end of a Crucible match, you might get yourself a blue one. Now, as I mentioned, you could get them from heroic adventures, but let's stay on that one for a little bit. First off, I like the heroic adventures, but I think they're way too hard to solo, depending on which one it is, especially the one that has the time limit. And not about you guys, but for me lately, it's hard enough getting a team together to go do the raid. There was one night where I did get a few people together, and we just burned through a bunch of heroic adventures, and I didn't really get many blue paradox amplifiers. I was getting greens again. So I'm saying to myself, well, what's the carrot? I'm not going to go do heroic adventures. I'm just going to go into the Crucible, because the Crucible matches are going to be faster. I like doing the strikes, but the fact that we're limited to only a few strikes, because we're still in technically vanilla Destiny 2, and doing strikes over and over and over and the same ones over and over, it gets old pretty quickly. So thank God Mayhem Clash came around, because one, I love Mayhem Clash, and two, the matches end really quickly, and I'd say every other match, sometimes match after match, I would get at least 2 of those Paradox amplifiers, the green ones, maybe even sometimes a blue one. Now, from an overall player experience, I enjoyed it. I would say that it's much better than just being handed a bunch of new weapons from a DLC. You actually had to go out and do a whole bunch of things. I do hope it comes back, or that future DLCs do have some sort of thing in place where you have to go and do XYZ and actually create and craft these weapons, but I hope they take it a step further. Let us really craft weapons and change the perks in them. You know, we don't know where they're going with the whole mod system in 2018. Well, it is 2018 right now, but you know what I'm talking about. I would like to see in either the next DLC or down the road, we have to go through forging of weapons again, but maybe at the end of the forge, you get to choose from, I don't know, 3 different types of that weapon, so you could choose which kind of perks you want, or perhaps a specific mod you could throw on there. We know mods are changing, as I mentioned before. Christopher Barrett said a more simplified and more interesting mod system, so who knows what they could do down the road. But I really think that this is a good foundation for things to come in future DLCs where, hey, you're going to introduce new weapons, don't make them just drop, make us actually have to go out and do all the activities within the world, not just based on that particular DLC, and then create and craft our own weapons, but just make it more interesting. Let us choose different perks. Let us choose different types of frames, even perhaps. You know, what if you had, you know, like for the pulse rifle, what if you did not want a slow fire rate, high damage pulse rifle? What if you wanted something that was really fast firing and you could mix and match, choose different perks? There's just, I know I'm babbling here, but there's a million things they could do with this down the road. So let's go into the subjective portion. Well, this whole thing is subjective, basically. Let's go into actually talking about all the weapons that you get, and let's just touch on briefly the Sagira shell, which you get from completing everything, which is probably the best ghost shell in the game you can have, but it's only for Mercury. But hey, you know what? It's a step in the right direction, right, folks? You didn't get it from Eververse, you got it from completing something within the game, and I do like that. Now, one of the player experiences I really enjoyed from Destiny 1, whether it was getting weapons from the raids or from just random rolls, was, hey, I had a new toy to go play with, right? I had something new that I wanted to go test out in either the Crucible or perhaps in Strikes, or just run around on patrol and have fun with it, especially the raid weapons. I felt like weapons that you actually had to grind for, they were the best in the game. Do I think these are the best in the game? Not really. Let's take a look at the Scout Rifle. So, you know, it's a high impact frame and it's got Outlaw. Hey, I love Outlaw. I like high damage Scout Rifles, but is it going to replace my Nameless Midnight that I turned into a Masterwork? Absolutely not. When it comes to the hand cannon, is it going to replace my Better Devils? Well, it's got Cocoon on it, but I mean, how often am I really going to stow it just so I don't want to reload? I just don't really see that happening. The Pulse Rifle's cool, and the perks aren't there, right? Ambitious Assassin overflows the magazine based on the number of rapid kills before reloading. I don't know, there should have been something better here, but have you noticed they started adding, well, at least an extra perk in this column here, so we are getting some more perks. But overall, I mean, like, let's look at the Pulse Rifle. It's got Dragonfly. Now, I would like Dragonfly if it was more like Firefly. They either need to bring back Firefly or buff Dragonfly to be like Firefly. The auto rifle is pretty darn good because it's got Zen Moment, and when you lay on to an enemy with this thing, like, you really feel Zen Moment kick in. But the problem is, I would have rather have had this on a 450 round per minute weapon, not a 600. You know, with 600, it's not doing much damage, but as soon as you start laying on, well, I'm speaking for PvE for the most part. When you're laying on to an enemy in PvE, all right, it's not going to move. You have zero recoil whatsoever. But is it replacing my Uriel's Gift, or is it replacing my Positive Outlook, or even my Prosecutor for that matter? Not really. The sidearm is awesome in PvP. I'm not a huge sidearm user, nor do I like people that sneak up on me and use them, but even though it's got Headseeker on it, if you watch Astacross's video on it, this thing just murks people in PvP. I used it a couple times, had some pretty good luck with it, but not a big sidearm user when it comes to PvP. I'm always going to use my Prosecutor or Uriel's Gift when it comes to my energy slot. Hand cannon, Jack, Queen, King. I got a Masterwork version of it, but the main perk in it, which is a pulse monitor, it's not very useful. It's not a bad hand cannon. It's got a lightweight frame, shoots pretty fast, decent damage, but I don't really feel a need to use it for the most part. Submachine guns, I'm not even going to touch on. They're both 900 rounds per minute, and for me, Of course, I'm always going to use the Antiope or Antiope D, whatever you guys call it. I butcher every name, and you know that. But let's move on to the final portion, which is going to be the Perfect Paradox. Now, this is a full auto shotgun, but we also have the Hawthorne's Field Forged, which is almost identical. And then I also have the radiolaria shotgun, which is basically the same thing, but it looks cooler, in my opinion. But it's got way less range on it. And I think the quest to get it, I mean, it was cool and all, and yeah, you get to see Saint 14's tomb and everything, but did it blow me away? No. I really think they need to bring back the exotic quest, the really difficult quest that we had from Destiny 1. And then, of course, you had a sword that you would forge, but for the most part, when it comes to swords, I kind of feel like they're all the same. There's really not much of a difference in what they actually do, and I don't use them that much, to be honest. So, in summarizing this babbling, non-scripted video, the process I enjoyed. I would like to see it evolve and see it become a little bit more fun, especially when it comes to things like the paradox amplifiers. Give us multiple ways, give us a streamlined way to get those things. And as for the weapons themselves, I think they should have been better. Yeah, I think like when it comes to something that you're going to grind and spend a lot of time doing various activities within a game, there should be a payoff. You know, that would be the carrot. Right now, the carrot was to get the Sagira's Ghost Shell, and even then, unless you're on Mercury, it's not very beneficial to you, but you know where I'm going with it. I feel like to put in all that effort to get these weapons, all of them, or at least a vast majority of them, should have been perfect rolled or things that we like. But then again, all of this is just my opinion, and I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. What did you think of the actual process of forging all these weapons, and what do you think of the weapons just in general? Hey, if you made it to the end, leave me a hashtag made it to the end in the comment section, and do me a favor, drop a like in this video only if you see fit. Follow me on the Twitter at Mesa Sean. Check out my stream, usually and always on YouTube, and that's it. I'm out of here like Vladimir.